We are back again. Sir Phoenix Black is here with me, Dr. Blue, and welcome to the Journey Unleashed. We like to remind you that this is casual combo for the betterment of our kinky peeps to explore diverse perspectives through dialogue. We are not preaching the gospel here. We are not teaching. We are learning as we go, and the views expressed here today may change next week because we are ever learning and ever evolving kinky humans. How you doing, Sir Phoenix Black?
I'm good, as always. Well, as most ways.
Good. Well, you look good.
Yeah, I got a haircut, shaved, whatever.
Looking all fly and sexy.
That's right. Watch out.
Woo! Lord, child.
I feel better about myself. Like my haircut and shaved and everything.
I don't know. I kind of like your fuzzy look.
I don't.
I think it's cute.
I don't. People didn't come to hear all this.
Hey, look, this is us being us, okay? They came to hear us. Y'all came to hear us. Y'all want us to be ourselves. So we're going to be ourselves tonight, and we're going to talk about some stuff. What are we talking about tonight?
Well, I was asked a question, and it's a question I get pretty regularly, generally from submissives, but I want to hear from both sides of the slash is what makes a good dominant? What are the traits you look for in a good dominant? And what are traits people look for in a good submissive? Now, I can't tell what I would say look for as traits in a good dominant.
Why? You should be able to. Why not?
Well, I guess I can
Okay,
give my
if you
perspective.
let me ask you, think about it like this. You have a sister that you love very much who's in the lifestyle. She's looking for a dominant. What would you tell her to look for?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Ah.
What would I tell her to look for?
Yes.
Well, the first thing that I would tell her to look for, and I think this is true on both sides of the slash, is look for someone who is introspective.
What do you mean by introspective?
That looks at themselves and is committed to self-improvement and self-work and self-betterment. Because if you have someone, whether dominant or submissive, if you have someone who kind of thinks like, I have evolved to the fullest level of evolvement,
I don't need any work.
and I don't need any work, they're gonna run you into a wall.
Okay.
Submissive or dominant. But it's probably more incumbent upon. I guess I probably would say it's more incumbent upon the dominant to have that kind of realistic perspective of themselves.
Yeah.
So what I would say dominant need to be someone who is introspective, who's somewhat of a deep thinker, who thinks beyond the surface level of this thing. Someone who, even though your dominant may be a sadist, like I'm a sadist, has a level of benevolence too.
Benevolence. What does benevolence look like? How is that manifested in a person that's a sadist?
Well, see, the thing about me. Well, let me start with the sadist thing. I'm a sadist. I'm a pretty intense sadist in a way. But
he is.
but the thing about it is, even being a sadist, it's with consent. So even in my sadistic tendencies, I'm not a clinically diagnosed sadist.
I see what you mean.
But someone who does it with consent. I get my sadistic tendencies are satisfied or encouraged by your responses. That's why, for those who have listened to the previous episodes, when I said that sometimes I would have to extend a scene.
Oh yeah.
I would have to pull her back because, see, once she goes to subspace, it really doesn't matter what I hit her with. She's gone.
Down, baby.
She's gone, so she's not responding.
To the floaty place.
Yes. she's gone, so she's not responding. I don't get any pleasure from beating a piece of meat.
Hey, I'm not a piece of meat. I'm just a person in the floaty place.
Yes, I know, but I don't get any pleasure from not getting any response from you. So that's why I have to extend the scene, because I like the responses. So if I don't get the response, I don't get that enjoyment from it. So.
But what? Okay, so consent, honoring consent is a way that's benevolent. That's a type of benevolence. I could buy that. What else might a benevolent sadist be like? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I would just say a benevolent dominant is that.
Benevolent dominant.
That can understand that mistakes will be made.
Okay. That
mistakes will be made. You're as a submissive. Your submissive is going to make mistakes, especially if you're in a new dynamic. They're going to make mistakes, and that they can get past those mistakes. One of my mentors has talked about the fact that when your submissive makes a mistake, if it's a situation where you do have to discipline your submissive, that you discipline them and it's over and it's done with. It's not drug out for a day or 2 days.
Yeah. You
do it swiftly. When first of all, don't do it in anger. That's the first thing. Don't do it in anger. You know, we've had that.
Yeah. We've talked about that.
So don't do it in anger. Do it in a place of correction and not of anger. That's the first thing. Second thing is, when you do it and be over with it. Don't drag it out. Don't walk around talking after the punishment's done, talking about, I can't believe you did this. Let it, when it's done, it's done. And you and I have even had this conversation, I don't think we've ever had it happen, but I have always said that if you're my property, you don't punish my property. Only I punish my property. Right. So if I punish you and I'm over with it, you don't have the right to keep dragging it.
Yeah. So beating myself up over it.
Right. Basically. So you don't beat yourself up over it after I'm done with it. After I'm done with it, you're done with it. So to me, that is a reflection of benevolence as well. So I would say a deep thinker, introspective,
and benevolent. Anything else?
I don't know. I haven't,
Well, I can tell you some of the things that were important to me. Those things were important to me. Someone who is, that honor and integrity piece was big. And when I say honor and integrity, I don't mean that it has to be some perfect moral paragon, That's not what I mean. I mean someone who does their best to act with a sense of what's right for the world. You know what I'm saying? What's right for the world. Someone who, and that, if you act in such a way that you're thinking about what's right for the world, you'll also act in such a way that is right for other humans and other living things. You know what I mean? So that to me was meaningful, just something to look for. Another thing, I wanted someone who is self-initiating in terms of learning, because this is risky stuff we do. And I need to make sure that if I'm getting tied up or spanked or whatever else, prodded with, poked and whatever, that the person knows the safety guidelines and is willing to do the research on that to make sure that we're safe in what we're doing. So, being willing to, not just physically safe, but emotionally safe, emotional safety too. And I know we've talked about this in another episode about, triggers and traumas being brought up. And so I need someone who is, willing to study and read and know, kind of like be familiar with psychology, be familiar with the safety protocols for the physical play, and then who knows how to deal with psychological stuff. Who is, well versed enough to at least, you don't have to be a psychologist, but at least be thoughtful about that kind of thing. We all got stuff that happened to us in our past that, some of this stuff can bring that to the
bring
surface.
it to the surface.
Yeah, I want someone who will take care of me. I'm definitely gonna be looking after your emotions and your psychological and physical health. In my role, that's what I do that's my thing anyway with people that I love. I take care of them, their health. Health is a big thing for me. So I want someone who, I can entrust my health to. And so being well read and learned in those ways, those are important things for me too.
And in addition to that, and I know we've talked about this before too, I think something that is kind of goes along with being learned and well read and being introspective is a certain amount of humility. Now, that being, hold on, I know we go. I know humility is not something that a lot of dominants have an excess amount of.
Shoot, a lot of S-type, or little S. A lot of little S's, we don't have it either.
But here's
saying.
Yeah, but that's I'm sure that's true. But even for the D types, the reason why I say I think humility is part of it is that part of the reason why I think you need humility as a D type is when there are situations that you don't know or don't understand, that you have the humility to be able to go to another D type and be able to say, hey, such and such happened, and I'm a little worried about this. It may not be something you can find in an article or in a book.
May not be anything written about that yet.
So you have to be willing. You have to be willing to say. You have to be willing to admit what you don't know, and have someone that you can go to and say, "Bruh, this happened, such and such, and I'm a little concerned about this. Have you ever experienced this? Do you know anyone that's ever experienced this? That kind of stuff."
Yeah.
And that takes a certain amount of humility.
Yeah.
In a show of our transparency, as we always do. The first time that we played and you passed out.
Yes, the bliss. Oh, the bliss.
Now, that was the first time.
I didn't know I was in trouble.
That was the first time that you had become completely incoherent, completely gone. And I was worried.
I didn't have enough sense to be worried.
But what happened was and you came out of it and you were like, I'm fine, or, and I was like, sure. But what I did is I contacted either 2 or 3 dominants.
I think, yeah, at least 2.
At least 2. And I said, hey, this happened. I don't know if this is right. And both of them, they said what they said. And they were like, you're good. You sure? Like, you're good, man. It's all right. But it does take a level of humility to be able to say, to admit something that you don't know.
Yeah.
Because when someone literally puts their lives in your hand, they want to know that you're not trying to overstate what you can and can't do.
Yeah. So knowing yourself. So self-awareness might be another quality. So introspection, being a deep thinker, being benevolent, and being self-aware, being willing to seek out guidance and knowledge and be, learned, and then have a moral compass, that speaks to, honor, integrity, and doing what's right for the world, and with people in the world. And going along with that too, if you, and this is, again, looking at how to, identify what to look for. Another thing for me is that goes along with the seeking of knowledge. I want my D type to seek it out. I shouldn't have to say, have you thought about getting a mentor? I shouldn't have to say that to you. If you're new to this and you are trying to learn, it should already have come to you to get a mentor. If I have to tell you what to read or suggest to you things that, I shouldn't have to do that. I mean, you should have the autonomy to do that as types too. We should all be doing that. Looking at what we want to learn and seeking it out on our own. We should be waiting for folks to have to tell us the things that we should do to learn, for ourselves, what we're doing. I mean, so I would want to see someone who's actively doing that already, not by my suggestion. Those are like the major things. I mean, I think the rest of the things would be about just individual fit between the little s and the potential D type. Just what makes us right for each other. I think having fit is like a huge deal, and I think everybody should be looking for fit. Does this person naturally do, or are they naturally their way of being in the world, stuff that jives with your way of being and the things that come natural to you? I think that's make any relationship, vanilla, whatever, works way more smoothly when you have fit. When I don't have to come outside of who I am as a person too much or at all, preferably, to be pleasing to you and vice versa. I'm just being myself and you like that. You're just being yourself and I like that. The way you lead is the way that fits well with the way I follow and vice versa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that works. But I guess maybe we should talk about what to look for. So, okay. So I guess, if you had a good friend or, let's just say a sister and she was looking for a little S, what would you tell her to look for?
The first thing comes to my mind is introspection and deep thinking. I think
Same
that goes
thing.
on both. I think that goes on both sides. I would say a natural desire and an inherent deep desire to serve.
How do you see that? Like, how would you look at, what would you look for?
I think
in the S, the little S.
I think you have to. I think it's just kind of instinctual. I mean, I very much talk about some things. I just have good instincts.
Yeah, but
and I don't know that
some people need evidence though.
Some people need evidence. I can't.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll just say this as someone who, I think service, when it comes to service and surrender are two different things to me. Service, I do without thinking. My job is a service-oriented job. I've done volunteer work since I was a kid. I've always put myself in situations to help others, to serve people. My sister friends, some of them, the ones that are married, go to their homes and help them when one of my sister friends was in nursing school. I used to go to her home and help cook for her and, look after her husband while she had her head in those books. You know what I mean? Don't nobody have to pay me. I just enjoy doing it when I have time to do it. Now, my job keeps me extremely busy. So when during my off season, I enjoy just doing things for people, So to me, that is that natural, when it plays out in your work, it plays out in just everything you do. You just always want to help out. I think that's just kind of a natural service orientation, and I've even had situations in my work where people ask me, I'm working with a very difficult population, and someone will say, well, wow, how in the world are you working so smoothly with that population? We have hell with that population. And I'll say, well, I put myself I call it a service orientation. I just let them know I'm here to help you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to, and I mean that. I'm sincere. I want to help you. I want to help make your life easier. How can I be of service? You know what I mean? And that generally puts people at ease, no matter how difficult they might be. So I think that might be like, those might be some signs to look for, other than intuition, for the people out there that might need some evidence. Those might be some signs to look for. That is this a part of their natural way of being in their everyday life, in other ways of other areas of life. The service part. Now, as far as the surrender part, that's a separate issue.
Yeah, I think that's a
that's
journey.
extra.
That's a journey. That word keeps popping up.
Yes,
journey.
Lord. Yeah. So, what else would you look for? So,
well, let me say this, and this, of course, another episode of being transparent to all of these people, is that, and it's twofold. When I think about, I'm a big proponent of writing things down, because I think writing things down helps you think more thoroughly through things, and it actually helps you communicate your thoughts and ideas better to those that are seeking to serve you or seeking to petition your house. So I'm a big proponent of the house manual. I'm probably in about the 7th iteration of my house manual. It seems to grow and then contract a little bit and then grow again. But and I'm getting to that is that one of the three of the things that I have made mandatory for anyone that wants to be a submissive of mine is 3 things. We do them naturally, but I had to really think about them as make them concrete, is education, experience, and community service. Okay. If you are submissive, community service shouldn't be a problem.
it's a part of the service thing.
It's
I mean,
part
if
of
you
the
like the
service.
service, you know.
Because if you're serving your D type and you're serving the household, then you shouldn't have a problem serving the lifestyle community as it is, overall. So to me, community service is a big component of that, and it's something I had to really write down and make concrete. Education, we already talked about that. That hits onto the deep thinking and introspection and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You should always be looking to try to get a piece of nugget of knowledge from anyone in the lifestyle, because everybody has a little bit of nugget of knowledge.
Even children, I've learned things from kids just watching and observing kids, and it's like, oh man, that's eye opening. You can get it from anywhere.
You can get it from anywhere. And matter of fact, when I took the mentorship program that I took, it was said in one of the modules that being a mentor is just as much a learning experience as being a mentee.
True. I agree.
And I can tell you, I have experienced that. So when you have, it's a reciprocal kind of relationship. So that is something that I have taken from that too. That community service,
education,
continuing education in any time. Most people that have a license to do something, they're required to have continuing education.
Right.
I would argue the same thing should apply here. If there was some type of BDSM board or something, should be required to have continuing education.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is more of a personal aspect for each particular submissive and or dominant is experience. You need to go out there and you need to experience other things in the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You need to be a part of a community. I know everyone is not comfortable with being in the real-time community because of their job or family obligation.
I was in
or
that
children
situation.
Yeah.
I was in that situation.
But you should be still seeking experience in some type of way. Now, I'm a proponent of doing it in the real-time community because I think it's safer. People that operate in the shadows usually operate in the shadows for a reason. But I understand also, I'm growing more to understand that everyone really doesn't have the luxury to do that, or they are just not comfortable doing it.
Right. And it, for me, before I lived here, in the community that I was in, I would never go to my real time community. The most I would do is go to that awesome fetish shop we have there. But that was it. I would never go to any munches anywhere. I wouldn't get involved in any of the events out there. I would travel to here, to Atlanta to do it. You know what I'm saying? But if you're going to do that, you have to have money and time to travel. Right. You see what I mean? I had to get away from I didn't want to, because of my work. I'm like, no, I'm not getting ready to be seen. Because that's just, I needed to keep I need to safeguard my identity and my stuff. That stuff was important to me. It still is, and it's awesome events in my other place where I used to live in, and I'm not going to that stuff. I'll stay out here in ATL and do it. You know what I mean? Because I don't have any professional connections here, so it works out. But so that's why I'm a little more sensitive about when people kind of don't want to be in the real time community that much, because they have, this stuff can cost you your job. That should be a show topic about some of the issues that come with practicing this. Yes. You can get in trouble. I mean, like, really, your livelihood can be at risk, doing this stuff. So, it's a shame, but it's true.
Yeah, it's
especially in the political climate that we have right now.
Yeah, Lord knows.
Yeah.
But I have hopefully we're gonna, at some point, we're probably gonna have a guest, what I'm talking about, who's gonna talk about the legal ramifications.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Of this lifestyle that we choose.
Yeah.
Or that chose us, depending on your perspective.
Right.
So hopefully we'll have her come in and talk about that. I've taken 2 classes, I think, under her now, maybe even 3. And she's very well versed in the law. I mean, she is an attorney, so she's got to be pretty well versed in the law. But she's very well versed in the law in the perspective of BDSM and DS and what we do. Mm-hmm. So, but going back to the topic about being for submissive, I look for someone who would be introspective, right. Someone who also has a level of benevolence, because you're, even as a submissive, you have to have a certain level of benevolence for your dominant. But when your dominant makes mistakes, if you want benevolence, you're gonna have to be able to want forgiveness. You're gonna have to be able to give some too.
That compassion,
right?
Gotta be compassionate.
So, and someone who seeks to self-improve, be educated, stuff like that. That's all of that is important in a submissive as well. I think a desire to serve, again, the desire to serve is very important in a submissive.
You know what I think we haven't brought up? We're getting close to our time limit, but I just have to talk about this just really quickly. The your monogamous, non-monogamous status needs to match.
Yes.
So for example, if you are a monogamous submissive, meaning you believe in monogamy, you are not willing to be in a non-monogamous dynamic, meaning you believe in one D type, one little S, one big D, one little S, y'all doing this thing together, the 2 of y'all. Okay. Have a definition for that. Is that sexual monogamy? Is that, emotional monogamy? Is it all of the above? Is it okay for you guys to play with other people? Have a definition. Know thyself in terms of that, and find someone who matches you on that.
What if they don't know that from the beginning?
You better figure that out. Or, you know what? Say I don't know. And let that person who you're interviewing, quote unquote, as your possible partner, determine if they want to deal with you figuring out on them. Because you might have to figure it out. And if that's the case, then maybe you need a longer consideration period or whatever, so y'all can figure it out. Because if you're monogamous and truly monogamous, and you mess around and get with a D type that's non-monogamous, there's gonna be a bit of a problem. You guys are gonna have some rough times ahead, unless you're one of those monogamous people who are I'm okay with being monogamous, but I don't care if my partner isn't. Now, I know some people who can manage that. They're monogamous in their own heart, and they're okay with their partner not being only with them. Or just be, or they can play, or they don't want, they're not sexually non-monogamous, but they don't mind play or whatever, extracurricular play or whatever you want to call it, that kind of thing. I also think that if I'm a polyamorous woman at heart, so I have a big issue with the whole, single D-type, multiple S-types, and the S-types can't be with anybody but the one D-type at all, ever, in any kind of way. I can't do that. I can't function that way at all. So for me, I'm okay with only having one dominant. I don't need another dominant in my life. I can't handle more than one. It's a lot, and but I would like to have other romantic partners, other vanilla partners, or maybe someone who is maybe someone who is in, like, I have a friend right now who's an S type, and I really like her, So like that kind of thing, I would like to have other kinds of emotional connections and possibly sexual connections outside of this one. So not, like I said, not another D type. That's just, for me, I just can't do it. I think it's possible for somebody to serve more than one if they can, and if it's allowed, but for me, that wouldn't work. But I think if you're a polyamorous woman, then you might want to make sure that that's a conversation that you have with your potential dominant, because you don't want to get in a situation where we call it in polyamory OPP, the one penis policy, where they only want you, or one vagina policy. It could be that too. The D type only wants you to be with only him or her and no one else, but they can have multiples. You see what I mean? Not gonna really fly with a lot of people. And so I think you have to be on the same page with regard to that. That's kind of important. So that conversation, and it is very common for, masters and dominants to have multiple little S's. They'll have multiple. And a lot of times they won't want their little S's to have anyone else in their lives except their sub-sisters or slave sisters or slave brothers or sub-brothers. And then that dominant, so I think you need to have a conversation about that and be clear about that. And again, another thing related to that too is the bisexuality thing, or the sexuality thing. I'm bi female, really kind of more pansexual really, but people don't really know what that means, so I just stick with the simple definition or the simple label. But a lot of times, there, especially with bi women, it's like we're kind of trendy right now or something. So everybody wants a bi woman, so that I guess they want to watch us have sex, which annoys the hell out of me. But I see that a lot. A male, heterosexual male dominants will want they only want bi submissives because they want that bisexuality in the household or whatever among the women. And if that's okay with you, then be okay with that. But I wouldn't suggest that a het woman go into a household where she's expected to have sexual stuff go on between her and the other women there if she's not attracted to women. I call that being a fabby, a fake ass bisexual, and you will be unhappy. Please don't be a fabby. Just keep it real. If that D-type wants a bisexual woman or a woman-loving woman, okay, then you're not the one for him if you're het. You're just not. And be okay with that. Because if you fake it and try to, do the fake it till you make it thing, you probably won't make it. Sexual orientation doesn't really work. It's fluid, but if you're not attracted to women at all, you're just not attracted to them, honey, and it's not going to change. So I've seen women do that. So that is kind of a sticky thing. So I think those kind of conversations need to come out as well. Important stuff to think about when you're trying to find a good fit for you. Having those conversations about, relationship type and in terms of monogamy and sexuality expectations and, It's some you might not even want sex to be even a part of your dynamic. And if that's the case, maybe you're asexual. Maybe, you need to talk about that to make sure that that's understood and that you guys are on the same page.
So it goes back to, again, honesty,
Yes.
communication,
and self-awareness, knowing yourself.
all of those things end up coming back into play because those set the foundation.
Yeah. And if you don't know, because I've met a lot of bi-curious women who are curious about women, exploring their sexuality. I've known men that have done that too, but they're not as forthcoming about it usually. But my thing is just be honest and say, look, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have some curiosities about it. I want to explore that. Let people know where you are so that they can make an informed decision about if they want to deal with you not knowing. It can be a pain in the ass for to deal with someone who's figuring it out. And some people are okay with that. They're totally okay with that. I used to be okay with it. I'm not okay with it now. I prefer that you have it figured out when you come to me, because I don't really want to know. I don't want to deal with helping you find your sexuality. I'm just, maybe that's, I feel like I've done my time. I've done my time already with that. So I can't do it anymore. But some people might want to do that. You know what I mean? So let them know so they can make an informed decision.
And I think that's something that everyone needs to do I encourage that from everyone. I think in one of the previous episodes, I talked about how one of my mentors says that the first year that you're in this lifestyle, don't even try to be in a dynamic. Don't even try to be, under consideration or, under someone's charge or anything like that, because you need to figure out how you fit in this lifestyle. Submissive that came to me for advice and stuff like that, and I said, well, what do you want? What do you want? What are you trying to kind of like learn in this? And after, a lot of talk, she eventually said, I want to know where I fit.
That's a self journey there.
Well, yes, but it can be helped along. And I said, you know something? I appreciate that. You want to know where you fit in this life. You know what your feelings are. You know what your proclivities are, et cetera, et cetera. So that's fine. You want to know where you fit, and I think that is fine. That's where my 3 things come in. Go out, serve the community. Go out, get some education. Go out, get some experience. That's, to me, those are the avenues in which you will find how you fit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
So I think we've done enough time on this topic.
I think we've, and you know what? There may be some things we didn't think of, and I'll challenge our listeners to continue the conversation and keep talking about the things that are important to you when you're looking for a partner. Make it clear, make it clear for yourself, because you might not even realize what you want. So thinking about what you want for you. So keep the conversation going. And we appreciate you tuning in. And thank you so much for listening.
All right.
Signing off once again. Bye.